back to the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. For those newly joining the program, my name is Irina Zuckerman and I'm the editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. With us today is Luciana Minassian. She's an international humanitarian lawyer and a candidate for Senate in Argentina. Tonight we'll be speaking about an issue that is both timely and relevant, which is the recent developments concerning Russia and Venezuela and their spy operations in Argentina. One of the most recent developments was a Russian embassy issuing a statement claiming that the accusations about joint surveillance of Casa Rosada in Buenos Aires were false. But of course, that is probably the most sure way, far way to know that there is some smoke, that there is no smoke without a fire. So to figure out what exactly is going on, we have Luciana to give us a more detailed perspective on Russia, Venezuela, their interests in Argentina, what's been happening since President Milei took office, and whether there's been any changes and additional challenges in that regard. So let's talk about this particular incident first. What exactly happened, and why did who accused the Russians and Maduro of conducting these operations, and based on what evidence?
Thank you so much, Irina, for inviting us. Let's hope to have a leg here of the Washington Outsiders soon in Argentina, because it would be really a good thing. And I think in order to answer those questions, I think we should go back a little bit and kind of make a timeline of the situation. Because if we go back to former President Fernandez, we should bear in mind that he was at the Kremlin and he had some sort of declarations that were aligned to the situation where his government was going, which was, of course, aligned with what former President Cristina Fernandez was also going. So before President Milei rose into power, we were aligned in a very different situation. So it means that we were friends with the president of Venezuela, president of Cuba, Russian president. President of the Russia Federation, Putin, the Chinese, and we were completely moved after Milei took office. So by now, we are aligned and mainly up till now, and mainly with United States and Israel. Also, fundamenting that is like putting basis on that is like it's important to say that former Minister of Foreign Affairs Diana Mondino actually was fired, or at least the reason they managed to say was fired, because she was voting in favor when they were deciding at the United Nations General Assembly the blockade of Cuba. So we have been like a little bit struggling with this new alienation of Argentina, and they are trying to put things in some sort of order that they were not before. So regarding that situation, we have to also bear in mind that when President Milei comes into power, he also has, for instance, parliamentaries. One of his most loyal member of the parliament is Mrs. Lilia Lemoyne, which is the one that we have to keep her name, because she is the one, and also Mrs. Pagano, Marcela Pagano, was also another member of parliament who got into her position when President Milei took office. And these two players are going to are a lot on the media because Mrs. Lemoyne, as a very loyal person to President Milei, is the one denouncing that Marcela Pagano and her husband, called Bindi, Franco Bindi, are the ones who are kind of conspiring, making the conspiration and bringing this sort of espionage and disinformation issue aligned with Russia and also Venezuela. And I wanted to mention them because in the case of Mr. Bindi, it is said that he was a lawyer for PDVSA Industries from Venezuela. Uh, and he's also, and Mrs. Lilia Lemoyne also has been accusing us almost for the last for at least 1 year that they were the ones aligned with the Russian embassy in Argentina and trying to keep this information situation, and also that through Mr. Bindi, Mrs. Lemoyne is saying that Russian medias managed to get to buy media here. I want to state all these facts because this is has been part of the conversation, and this has been going on for at least more than 1 year, almost a year and a half by now. And this all took place before elections. We had elections last Sunday, but it was local elections from province of Buenos Aires. But things get a little bit uh, dirty before elections. And then we were going to have general elections on October 26th. But we're going to elect members of parliament again, higher chamber, Senate, and lower, which is diputados. It is called diputados. So also, we have to bear in mind that Mrs. Pagano, Marcela Pagano, is the one in charge of the parliamentary group of friendship, the Russian parliamentary group of friendship. Of course, someone has to be in charge of that because it's something that is usually done inside the Argentinian parliament. For instance, Mrs. Lemoyne is in charge of the Armenian parliamentary group, the friendship group. So yeah, it's something that has to be done. But Lemoyne goes further in saying, no, these people are really engaged into some disinformation and espionage campaign. On some other side, we have to bear in mind that also by June, middle of June of this year, the speaker of President Milei's speaker, Manuel Adorni, also held a press conference trying to explain that there was some sort of espionage linked to Evgeny Prigozhin, um, and that there was something installed in Argentina regarding a movement from the Wagner group, and there was some sort of follow-up that was installed in Argentina, and something was taking place. So they might have grounds. Of course, they might have grounds. We also have to bear in mind that in Argentina, the European delegation, together with the Ukraine embassy, and last year, together with the embassy of United States, they were holding disinformation conferences. But after the meeting of February, March with President Zelensky of Trump and President Zelensky in United States, there was a follow-up of the disinformation conferences in Argentina, and it was not the ambassador; it was the lady in charge of the economic affairs that was the highest representative of the United States embassy, and she was not a speaker this year. I want to state these differences because the United States was a speaker the previous year, the ambassador, and there were also guests invited to speak from United States. I'm speaking about 2024. And this year there was a huge difference. They were participating, but there were not speakers and there were no guests invited to speak from United States. So it was pretty clear that there was a different way, a different kind of alignment after the meeting of President Trump and Zelensky. So that's a little bit of the huge thing that we have here. So we also have to bear in mind that we do have Russian diaspora. We could even call it the Russian diaspora by now because after the aggression, many Russians fled here and they were getting the Argentinian ID kind of very easily, and they were having babies here in order to get that ID for the babies. I should say it was crowded in Buenos Aires with Russians. We are seeing less and less from that. We're seeing less from that situation lately, but it's something that it was a fact. So a little bit that's the background of the main question that you've been asking.
So it seems to me that usually when you have local elections, it's not considered such a big deal. But it seems to me that Russia, Venezuela seems to take even those issues as something strategic and important and a potential pathway to greater influence. So what is it about this particular local attention that had the Russians so interested that they were brazen enough to get caught. And there are ways of engaging in espionage without getting caught for professionals. Clearly, they there was so much going on that they just did not care. What is it that what results did they want to achieve, and do you think that they achieved it?
Okay, they might have achieved something. When we speak about espionage, maybe we should
Mm-hmm,
separate issues here because it could be linked to economy
mm-hmm,
espionage or whatever economy interested they might have. Um, because it would not be really a surprise to know about that. Maybe it's also linked to the follow up of the sanctions that they do have or
mm-hmm,
they don't have. So maybe it's a little bit linked to that. Otherwise, they might want to have information on the. I think it's important for them because bearing in mind how also President Trump shift from one sort of alignment up to now. And bearing in mind that President Milei is he expresses himself in a very clear way that he only wants to be aligned with Israel and United States. We don't know if there's going to be any change after the elections because everything might happen. But and elections are important. Even the small elections from the last Sunday,
mm-hmm,
uh, they are they are a powerful statement. I mean, we were not picking members of parliament at the elections of last Sunday in Provincia de Buenos Aires at the province. It was a local election, but again, this talk this all these. Sayings or hearsays and sayings about the Russians, they were installed for the elections of September. Probably they will go into escalate in order to have a big deal, or in order to have I, um a, another maybe make have more information for or be more engaged uh, or just have some interference for the elections of October 26th, which would also we can also bear in mind that the big winner of last Sunday elections was governor of Provincia de Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof. So he was aligned with the governments of former President Alberto Fernandez and former President Cristina Fernandez. So it would again put us in another track, totally different from. And he made himself he proclaimed himself a future candidate for president in 2027. So we have to think about all that. There was also a problem with the private secretary of president's office, Karina Milei, and the situation that they could not solve till now is who backed the office. There were leaks from the office,
mm-hmm,
and it was so what you are asking is also linked to that because they could not find the intelligence service in Argentina. They could not find who was responsible for having the office backed. And in that sense, it could totally happen that it could be there could be some Russian interference. We should also say that we have diplomatic presence from the Russian embassy in Argentina. We have Belarus present here in Argentina. We have the Hungarians here in Argentina. We do have all these diplomatic representations in Argentina. So it's a little bit up to us to figure out whether there's something more going on. We also had a very just to tell the story. We had a very rare incident after Christmas, 2024 Christmas Eve, when they stopped two cars from the Ukrainian embassy, the police here in Buenos Aires, and they wanted to see whether they were drunk. And this woman, member of parliament, Marcela Pagano, was the one going and making statements. I don't I think she even got to the place where these people were stopped by the police. Uh, of course, we know that diplomatics may not be stopped, and they are not forced to show IDs, and they cannot be asked to go through alcohol uh, proofs. But again, she was the one, and she was like the speaker for the Russian embassy. So we have to bear in mind all that, because we might not have like facts, but this is something that has been denounced for a year or a year and a half, as I told you before. So Argentina was a country also where the Ukraine aggression was very much informed the, I think, for the previous 2 years after the situation with the meeting with President Trump and Zelensky. It took another, okay, there was another way to work about these things, even though we have like NGOs that are exactly organized to come to Latin America, and also there are some activities. For instance, the Ukrainians organize some sort of activities. For instance, the Prosvita Center people, there will be very soon, there will be some visitor from the Colombia Prosvita Center coming here and organizing meetings. And they also they are going to organize some sort of like the British Council kind of conferences with the cultural approach. And for instance, you can go through the Coursera and get a Ukrainian cultural approach, and they are going to bring that activity here. Probably in 10 days, the representative from Colombia is going to be here. But it has been a struggle the last year. It was not like that before. So there is a difference somehow. There is a difference. For instance, personally, I managed to have Ukrainian conferences at the University of Buenos Aires School of Law. And the second conferences I wanted to have, it was a little bit more complicated. So I wanted also to state that even in the scholar fields or the academic fields, something slightly changed. It's not that they said no, but somehow it was not possible to arrange a second conference, like the follow-up conference. And maybe, okay, Argentina joined the coalition for the kidnapped Ukrainian children, which is a good thing. And previously to that, during 2023, uh, NGOs who came here were willing to have Argentina joining the about 42 countries that were signing for the a special tribunal for the crime of aggression. But so far, I think they did not go, they did not sign for the creation of the special tribunal. I think Argentina never signed. But there was a really, somehow I feel like there was a shift. And especially I felt it during February of March, after the Trump Zelensky meeting, and we had some this misinformation, disinformation conferences. Something was a little bit broken. Like I could see it in two different events. That's something I felt it was a little bit broken. But somehow now we managed to go a little bit more in track with that. and we are working with the Ukrainian embassy to in order to organize events and let people know what the information about this is about. This is not a country where they might know a lot about the Russian
Hmm.
interference, and I in that sense I cannot say that it's been like Romania, for instance, and the far right candidate they have for the first elections, that then the constitution Georgescu, that the constitutional court had to intervene and said that that was not a person who could clearly run. And today we had some sort of a scandal with the Moldova intelligence guy today. So I think we are not into that kind of hybrid war in Argentina, but somehow it's starting. Somehow
Hmm.
it's starting. So all these struggles and all that we are discussing here, it's part of that hybrid war. So we may not see the consequences very clearly, but somehow we know that there is that the link exists, and that's also the reason why I wanted to say that even the president asked his speaker to give this press conference during June and explain about the situation of the group, the Latka. Uh, Follow up of the Prigozhin Wagner group, that they were here. Somehow they were here. Um, but nothing is very clear so far. And just to say, when I was talking about the member of parliament, Marcela Pagano, the one that is supposed to be linked with the Russian embassy, she left the bloc, the parliamentary bloc, and she made a coalition with three other members of parliament that they left Milei's political party. It was like 10 days ago when we were voting for the president had vetoed the project for there were two things. First, for the retired people, the opposition wanted to raise the salaries for the retired people. And second, in the situation of disabled people, there is an economic aid, and the president said that he didn't want to have points of he didn't want to have deficit, like fiscal deficit, because he was raising the amount of budget that was going to be sent to these two groups of retired people and people with
Hmm.
disability. So he vetoed that, and he could not get the veto to pass the parliament. When he could not get the veto to pass the parliament, four members of his own political party left. One of those members, of these members, is Marcela Pagano, member of parliament, Marcela Pagano, and she made a new coalition called some sort of coherence coalition or something like that. So this is pretty new. It's like from 10 days ago, probably, when all this situation happened. And it was before these elections that didn't really seem to be important, but there's so much more. It's like a thermometer of what is going on here, or what is going to happen in 15 days for the elections of 26th of October. So everything is like a little bit linked to, every situation is linked to the other somehow. And yeah, they might be, of course, when the Russian embassy made the statement, um, they were also pushing for the same direction, but after that they tried to disengage from the situation and like said, no, I'm only a member of the friendship, the parliamentary group of friendship with the Russian Federation, this and that. But I think there's more, of course.
It's not uncommon for Russia and other countries actually to use these groups to advance political objectives that go beyond lobbying and beyond political engagement. And they utilize personal friendships and personal relationships to kind of get around official political channels at the very least. Another issue that's related to that is the role of political allies inside Argentina, like the Peronistas, who have their own power-related agendas, political power, but they have also been more loyal towards pro-Russian, pro-Maduro, and other foreign interests. To what extent what is going on, an issue directly related to direct interference, spying by foreign powers, and to what extent is it linked to the local political struggles involving these entrenched interests?
Well, it's an interest question because this political struggle that we are having here and that it's not even going to end up. It's just beginning on October 26th when we have the middle term elections. Yeah, that it could probably be linked to the former groups. It was important to say that we have to be bear in mind where Peronismo, which you might call it Kirchnerismo because of former President Nestor Kirchner and the wife, former President Cristina Kirchner. Um, this is probably kind of complicated because for last Sunday elections, they were uh, um, President Milei political parties. They were, if we want to fight Kirchnerismo, you have to vote for us. But all the same, some of the candidates they were having in the lists, President Milei lists, they were former Kirchnerists. So
Mhm.
it's a little bit complicated because you really don't want to, and somehow they managed to go with those formulas for the elections of Provincia de Buenos Aires, the small elections. But now that they didn't go very well, of course, we knew that Kirchnerismo, the party of former President Cristina Fernandez and the governor of Provincia de Buenos Aires, Axel Kicillof, was going to be very strong. Like province of Buenos Aires doesn't peronismo or kirchnerismo, they probably will always have 32%. Like it's normal, like it's the floor for them. So in that sense, they were also saying there were also voices from the Milei's party saying that we didn't really lose because it was expected. But the fact that in their list there were people from former Peronismo. I say former because they expressed themselves as former Peronismo, and the color of the political party of Milei is violet, so everything is purple. I am purple. They were speaking about themselves like that, but they were candidates that at least for the last 15 years have been following all the Peronistas, Kirchneristas candidate and had been candidates inside that party. So it was for me it was clearly a scam. And I
Mhm.
have to go through those elections. It was going to be a problem because whatever they were the offer, it was the same somehow. If you're trying to combat Kirchnerismo, Peronismo, and you're putting former members of the party in your own lists is really complicated. And that's a little bit what happened here last Sunday. And all that people, yes, they were of course linked to, even for instance, not only for the Russian or Venezuelan interference, but now I'm putting Iran inside again because
Mhm.
there not the people who were not candidates, but people who were close to President Cristina Kirchner, to President Alberto Fernandez. It's, for instance, this person, Delia, we call Delia, who was straight linked to Iranians in the blowing of the AMIA building in 1994. So everything is a little bit connected here because it's the same path. Whenever we are speaking about Venezuela, we're speaking about the Iranians. We could be speaking about the Russians. Everything is on the same path, and it's a path that apparently President Milei wanted to to end somehow, and that's why he's also aligned to Israel and United States. But I think he's kind of paying a price for that somehow, and also having also the shifts that President Trump uh, somehow is showing. I mean, with Vladimir Putin. Um, it might also leave us in this situation where we cannot like state something, but we should say, yeah, it might be the possibility, because um, I think I believe that we could be bugged and we could be investigated, and they probably will want to have some sort of leverage, whatever kind of leverage they can have from here. But still, it's not very clear. Depending on, I was thinking about the students, depending on which universities you're studying, or if you're a student of the philosophy university, the public university, you are going to be probably very very linked to the Palestinian demonstrators, I don't want to say Russian, because it was not the way it used to be, but it might be. I mean, depending on where you are. If you're at law school, it might probably not be the same. But students is a very an important channel, because they are very political. So I'm also thinking about that possibility. And when you're thinking about specific careers related to social issues or philosophy, you might get people more linked to these kind of activities. But
Mhm.
again, it's just something that I'm thinking about, and I'm not assuming anything by now, but it's pretty normal. Um, I don't know if we will be able to. I don't think we will be able to eradicate that. I don't think, but it goes back to all these situations of the blowing of the Amia Jewish building, and like we have a history here in Argentina, and also the Israeli embassy. So uh, um, we have this kind of line where you have to put straight. I would not say China, because it's not something that is on the mind of the Argentinians, but the Russians, the Iranians, the Cubans, Venezuelans is something that is more clear, a more clear path somehow, that we will bear in mind that it can be linked somehow on that. But I don't know. We will have to wait, and we'll have to combat that. The important thing is that we combat this, because it's also a risk, and it's like a threat to the security of our country. And uh, I don't know how it's going to be by now. I don't see it like an immediate threat, like I would totally sense in a European country, or for instance, neighboring countries of Ukraine. But there is some threat, but it's like we are not seeing it somehow yet.
It seems to be an almost paradoxical approach of this administration. On the one hand, they put a bounty on Maduro's head. They basically said this is how much you'll get if you arrest him. On the other hand, the US administration just decided that it will not be fighting Chinese, Russian, or even Iranian information warfare, information campaigns, which essentially leaves the country open to any sort of political interference from those three countries, which have very powerful networks throughout the entire Western Hemisphere. It's not just the United States, they're all over Canada, Mexico, and of course South America as well. And they have to partner with Venezuela and Cuba because those countries have vast intelligence and influence networks, and they're the local partners who speak the language, understand the local mentalities, you know, and can get in easier. There's only so much Iran or Russia can do openly. They're still outside countries, but local neighboring countries can do quite a lot. To what extent do you think this decision for the US officially to not take any steps against disinformation, foreign malign influence, will make it more difficult to identify and to combat these external um, forms of intervention? And to what extent do you think it will make the situation more complicated?
Yeah, yeah, you have a point because it's yeah, it becomes really complicated to to combat this disinformation when you don't have the specific tools. Right? Uh, I think this is not this. We have also had some problems with the. Remember, we had at the Venezuela, the Argentinian embassy in Venezuela. We had this situation with the soldier. I would call him. Okay, that he was released by now. Um, and there are many. Okay, we have to think about I'm thinking about academia, and I'm thinking like how they are also expressing about all these situations. For instance, the former governments have been creating universities around, not in the city of Buenos Aires, but around the provincia of Buenos Aires. And those universities are places where you can put chairs for different topics. And you might get uh, chairs that would allow this kind of cells of disinformation grow there because they would create that kind of chairs. And it's always something that we have to monitor somehow. Uh, Lately, there has been less budget because of President Milei, but somehow it's important to think about that because they have been working for at least, I don't know, 2012, 2000, yeah, when President Kirchner was in charge. And this creation is also linked, for instance, I think you have heard about Madres of Plaza de Mayo, where they have their own universities somehow, and they have the critical thinkers who are completely aligned with all these countries that we are mentioning. So the work has been done for many years here. And somehow now it's reversed because of the policies of Millet, but it hasn't and we haven't eliminated all that. It has been a little, like 2 years is not a long period of time. So if they are reducing budgets or something, it might help, but it's not easy to um, eliminate all that has been built for more than 10 years here. So I think it's important to think about that because all these aligned countries had place in Argentina. And we never know exactly up to what extent, but probably yes. Uh, I'm not very. I don't have the correct answer for that, but I think that the only way to know about this is to still to battle this disinformation. We don't have a correct information about who was bagging the offices, by the way, because it was recently taken to the justice. But we didn't get a resolution from the judge. We only got the judge to say, okay, nobody should be quoting the content of whatever was leaked because it's like for the sphere, the intimacy of whatever was spoke there, um, which created a problem because it was about freedom of press and freedom of speech against the personal sphere that was backed, which was the sister of the office of the sister of President Millet. So by now, I think those problems are going to be a little bit left behind because by now we're having the problem of what does she represent. This is what is being discussed these days here because she is facing a defeat from last Sunday, and the people she chose, which come from Peronismo once again, which is linked to all these people that you are mentioning. So up to and there somehow there is not a lot that can be changed because the lists of candidates who are elected to participate in October 26th, it and the deadline was the last day of August, so there's nothing that they can do to change candidates. So if we are going to have again mixed candidates, we have to deal with them. But I think when if we have, because we never know with the Argentinian justice, but if we have some sort of information about what could have been leaked and if there were Russian interferences there, which of course could not be only Russian. I mean, could be linked to whatever countries aligned with Russia. So I somehow when we mention the Russians, it's not about only the Russians. They could be somewhere. They could be there could be other representations of other countries here in
Sure.
Argentina. Yeah, that is something that we have to bear in mind.
But
Uh, yeah,
But just as Russia has created a block of these friends and allies and proxies, Belarus and Cuba and North Korea and Nicaragua and all these other places, even if Russia doesn't directly do something, one of those others can. What Argentina under President Milei has been trying to position itself as a defender of Western liberal values. Clearly, all of that is under challenge. Most of Latin America is not yet in that sphere. It's either struggling or has not gotten there at all. The United States is retreating internally and focusing on drug cartels and anti-immigration and domestic problems. It's giving up any sort of soft power influence, as far as I see. So, what countries or actors internationally could be good candidates for Argentina to create its own freedom bloc? Because acting in isolation against all these forces is a tremendous challenge. No matter how much, goodwill you have, you need to have your own network to counteract the network from the other side.
yeah, okay. Also bear in mind that when President Milei aligns with United States and Israel, inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is kind of totally destroyed, and now we are not having people who were doing the diplomacy career. There are many of them who are not working. They were like called, or rather, not even named for embassies or nothing. So we are having a serious problem of whatever is happening inside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which marks where also President Milei is aligned. Also, I recall that former Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Diana Mondino, the one that he fired because allegedly because of the vote for the blockade of Cuba, allegedly. I happened to attend one of her conferences, and by that time she was not like into the Al Jazeera speech or discourse. When she said, "Okay, rather President Milei is not clever, or rather he's corrupt."
Mm,
Um she was not like that. She was only saying that maybe, and what from what I could infer from her, it's like maybe we were by aligning so clearly with United States and Israel, we were missing part of whatever is not aligned with us. And she mentioned the Chinese.
mm.
And I kept thinking, but she didn't develop her ideas. Like I kept thinking, what was she up to? And maybe she was getting deals. We don't know. We are the only country by now. Okay, we have Bukele, but in we
Small
have
country. it's El Salvador is a very small country, and it's still, it's doing better, much better, but it has ways to go become before it becomes fully economically developed. That's the reality. And
Yeah,
it's
and
surrounded by unfree countries.
exactly. And our immediate neighbors, Brazil, Uruguay, and Chile, they are going into a different policy, which somehow might not be that tremendously aligned to some other different, because they don't differ their economies and everything. They don't take such a turn like the Argentinian turn. Okay,
Mm.
President Milei has been praised all over the world for what he did, but when we had a defeat last week, last Sunday, it was also because the people, they are struggling economically. Yeah, the peso is like very highly valuated in front of the dollar, and maybe it's what we call voto bolsillo. Whenever they are going to vote for people, but they don't have money in the pockets,
Hmm.
it's easy to understand that they might be voting against the policies, because macroeconomics is pretty beautiful and probably kind of solved or into the path of being solved, but somehow the microeconomy is not going into the same path, so the people are struggling, which is a reality here. So, and we are not aligned in the same situation with the new president of Uruguay, President Lula, President Boric. So I'm also thinking about our immediate neighbors. And we left. We are not aligned with BRICS. We are not aligned with anything of that by now. But the when you can make a statement, but somehow you are still uh, you are not into the new perspectives somehow, because I don't find our situation, like, for instance, we left all that, and we have another economist, for instance, that he was also a speaker during the same conference that former Minister of Foreign Affairs Mondino was a speaker, and the guy, he's working for Bima, for one of the banks, and he was sent for. I think he was sent for to meet some representatives, somewhere in United States, and they said, okay, what about the security, the legal security, because in Argentina there are many things that need to be changed in order to have capitals to invest here, and like the guy said, who is going to be in charge? He was asked who's going to be in charge in the following 4 years, and he could not answer that. And they said, okay, come back in November, and we'll see what happens after your elections of October. But it's like a daily endeavor here and a daily challenge. So that is the reason why everything is like loose ends by now, and we are having these facts, but we are not seeing the entire picture here. But I still sense a hybrid war here, and I still sense that there are countries aligned with something that we are not aligned anymore, and the leak could be from there, but it's not something that is very clear, like if you are stepping in some country when you really face the hybrid war, which here is like still not very much noticed. um, and we could be at risk. Like, I hate, because I hate to say this, because I'm like the biggest defender of rule of law, and what I want is President Milei to end. And if something happens to President Milei, we still have Deputy President, Vice President Villarroel. And I hate that, because it's very Latin American problem not to have a president ending his term. But here they are speaking about that, and they could be the destabilizing forces as well. Like, that could be the interference we are having right now, because we may not see it as clear as we see it in a European country, in a bordering country with Ukraine. I'm not speaking like, maybe if you go to Vienna, nothing is going to be sensed in the same way that if you're speaking about Hungary, Poland. Romania, Moldova, because they are facing a serious risk to be, I don't know, somehow invaded or something. But here, since we don't sense anything of that, is somehow how are they leaking? How are they managing to get here? That's why I also wanted to state that the European delegation, through its 27 countries here, they were very powerful, or I felt them very powerful, backing Ukraine in this situation. But there was a little bit of this destabilization after Trump's and Zelensky first meeting of the year. And the follow up of whatever happens with the meetings of President Trump and Vladimir Putin, it might have a consequence here as well. And the situation, that the stabilization could be like into what I'm trying to say. We don't. They would try to destabilize through. Uh, Whatever happens in the elections, the midterm elections of October. But in the sense that they don't want him to get up to the end of his term or something like that. And it has been going on for a while. It has been even with the vice president, it has been going on for a while. It has been more than a year saying that the vice president is like doing her own thing or trying to uh, make her own thing in order to be a clear candidate for the following term, like. And that's also a way to destabilize here inside. Well, it's a problem, but it's a struggle every day. So far we are with all this is all this information is the knowledge that we have somehow, and we cannot say a lot more. But they are here. They are here. That's why it was important also when I speak about the Russian diaspora, for instance. They began to come here after the aggression, the Russian aggression. So we're speaking about 2022. In 2023, they were all over the city of Buenos Aires, and that's important to think about. And something important also about that. I don't know where those people are by now, because I see less and less Russian people in the streets. But also, let's have in mind that the only kind of procedures or legal cases that I know from Russia is to the wrong people, to because they did not join the army. It's like the only thing that we know from the Russians, because there has no been other kind of accountability. Having Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova being indicted before the international court is something, but it's like they could have said that they were doing their own investigations for the enforced disappearance of the children. They could, whenever you have this kind of legal cases, you can say, like, even when you are using universal jurisdiction, you can say that you are investigating something, that it somehow accountability is being done in your country. But in this case, nothing at all. And that's why I'm thinking about where are all these people, or these Russian people that were walking all over the streets of Buenos Aires. Like, I don't see them anymore. I see a little amount of Russian people in the streets, but not that much. And bearing in mind that I think they never returned to the Russia Federation, by no means, because bearing in mind
Mm-hmm.
that you are having this kind of accountability only because of the people who deserted the army, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's going to be. Also, the fact that the people who are here, they didn't look like refugees. They probably look like some bourgeois families, I should
Mm-hmm.
say, which is a different situation to have. You're not having like immigrant refugees who flew with nothing, and no, it's not like that. And like they were like planning families, planning to have babies in the country, having the ideas because they had the babies. And I don't know whether they managed to somehow get, I don't know, I'm just talking like brainstorming. I don't know whether
Mm-hmm.
somehow they managed to get some passport in order to go to other countries. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another complicated factor too. that raises a
Yeah.
question. Is there, given that, the peso is now stabilizing and macroeconomically the situation is doing better, is there a chance to attract foreign investments, like from the United States, from high performing economies in Eastern Europe, from some of the friendlier Middle Eastern countries? Or is that something that's still difficult to achieve?
No, it's something that we need still to achieve. We like, as a candidate, I have to also bear in mind that we didn't like, uh, we have more than 160 taxes in Argentina, and they didn't go through the taxes. That is one important thing. And from
Mhm.
160 taxes, you could cut up to four, and we can all assure that people would be paying if you cut to short main taxes. So the legal reform is for taxes, is needed for taxes. The legal reform is needed for the working. For the working laws, the jobs, you never manage to fire an employer because you have to pay with all your little or big business. People are somehow losing their businesses because they decided to get rid of one of the employees, and the amount that you have to pay for to get rid of some employee here is like you really have to close your business. So we really need a reform into that. With United States, I was giving you the example of this important economist Sukovicki that was sent in order to arrange some deals, and they were saying like there's no legal security in your country. We don't know what perspective will you will be having. Come back after midterm elections, we'll talk. But it's not about midterm elections also, because midterm it will show us the light, and we will know if whether the path will be and with President Milei, and whether he will have more people at the parliament to pass all these laws that I was explaining that they were vetoed. And with the Europeans, I think it's a little bit complicated because all these uh, rules and terms and norms that they have in order, for instance, if you have to sell, if you, Argentina as a country who has been selling meat, cow meat for the last 200 years. I don't know. Since we got the money that Bering Brothers, it's like historically, like 200 years ago, the Bering Brothers lent Argentina some amount of money. And since then, we didn't move a lot from whatever we are, the industries that we are having. So if we want to sell premium meat to the people. You have to, for instance, to the European Union, you have to follow the rules. And maybe, I don't know, if you're speaking about soy or if you're speaking about the meat, then maybe the soil was had some pesticides or something, so you're not
Mhm.
complying with the rules of the European Union. Just to put an example,
Mhm.
because they are so you have 800 pages of whatever they are deciding. If you want, if you are a country that would like to join the European Union, you will go to a 10-year process, and you will have like this big book of 800 pages, and you have to comply with each and single thing that is expressed in the book. So it's a little bit complicated. It's like I have a colleague who is also kind of ambassador for the lithium consortium. He's in
Mhm.
United States, but he's an ambassador for the lithium consortium. And I don't know if things are really very easy. Like if we're really going to have this facility to open up to the world. I think it's still a slow, very slow process. Also because people don't want to put money in a country that they don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, and we're still into that process, and that's where the destabilization is plays its role. That is the most important thing. So if we don't know what is going to happen in September due to whatever happened this Sunday, it's a little bit complicated. And if you are basing whatever happened on Sunday on whatever the sister of President Milei was having in mind with people, okay, she has two members of the Menem family working for her in order to decide who the lists of parliamentary members were, the candidates were going to be picked from. So there's a lot of complications there. And they come from Peronismo, Menemismo, Kirchnerismo. They come from that same brand. So it's a little bit complicated in Argentina to get back from history, but you're always dealing with the same people who now, yesterday they were called Peronistas and today they are called Mileístas, but nothing changed in
Mm-hmm.
the bottom. And that's where the destabilization enters, because it has always been like that in this country. But again, up till now, it was good when last Sunday Milei had what he called, by his words said it was a defeat. The price of the Bitcoin dollar was going up, 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 up. And yesterday, I went. Yeah, you have many places to change money, to exchange money here, to change dollars and get pesos or the opposite. It's not only for tourists. It's like people going with local people going with their money and changing. What has been very a situation that persisted in that time, because people who had savings in dollars, when the peso got higher and higher and higher with Milei's policies, people were selling part of their savings because everything is more expensive by now. Argentina has become a very expensive country. So the places to the exchange businesses here, they were the two of them were like kind of closed yesterday. One with a sign saying we don't have system, but probably the reality is not that they didn't have system. The reality is that they didn't want to change money because they don't know the real price the following day or the following day after such a defeat,
Mm-hmm.
using president's words. He was the one who said we had a defeat here. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a problem to have such a. I don't know. It's not a very clear horizon yet. It seemed to be a very clear horizon, but I think that the money in the pockets are not enough. And retired people, they even a candidate from a Milei candidate who won yesterday on Sunday. He was interviewed yesterday, and he's a former. I don't know even if he's a former. He's a member of the. He's a policeman, and I don't even know if he's a former policeman, but he was a candidate from President Milei for some small charge in the suburbs, and he won. And he was the first thing that he said in his interview yesterday was that his mother, who was a retired person, she only managed to live 15 days of the month with the salary that she got, which is clearly going against President Milei, and he was a candidate for President Milei. So we never know what is going on here. That's the amount of attacks that they get. Uh, if he was a member who won because he was joining the opposition, it's pretty understandable that he was discussing, he was bringing such a statement. But it was part of the coalition of President Milei, of whatever candidates they choose, which is also part of the group of the president's sister, Karina Milei, and the group of the Menems, plus another guy called Pareja, Sebastián Pareja. And this is the focus group that dealt with choosing candidates. And this guy, Sebastián Pareja, comes also from Peronismo. That's the problem that we're facing. Of course, if you are creating some new political party, which is a small, you will probably have to, you will probably need to form somehow coalitions, and these coalitions may come with this kind of people when some but somehow, and I don't know, maybe because I'm older now and I'm experienced, but you look at the people and you know exactly what the background was, and you realize whether they are people who really change or they are just using you to get these groups of candidates and then leave you, which
Mm-hmm.
might probably be the outcome. And that
So
will
there's
be a,
a lot of opportunists who are not really dedicated to the vision.
yeah,
So how
yeah.
do you identify and recruit people who are genuinely willing to invest their energy into the vision itself and aren't there just for some political, to make their political careers? There has to be
If I had
people
to,
who are. Mm-hmm.
you say if I had to choose people, at
Yeah.
least what I would do is first choose from at least from professional circles, at least,
Mm-hmm.
because what I see in whatever they chose, it's a total mediocre uh, kind of selections. For instance, in province of Buenos Aires, in during the October elections, the first one for diputado for the lower chamber is one of I was in his campaign. It's Jose Luis Espert, and he's the number one for diputados. But the number two, the woman, because we have to have a man, a woman, a man, a woman on the list. We're still with that because we have like the gender law thing that we have to somehow do that for the balance of the list. So the lady who is number two, it's a lady who used to appear in Playboy. Okay, we might have a new Chicholina, but and you might say, okay, what is the criteria here? Is she like a real brain? And maybe she was showing the bad, but somehow she's so brilliant by now that we really need her. Okay, you get on X and you read her, and she can even like write a sentence like, really, you're putting a person because she's on TV, but she doesn't even know how to speak, and she only shouts like "Viva Presidente Milei, Viva," I don't know, and she's chanting and all that. So that's the problem. I think my criteria would be, at least when you're starting from almost from scratch, a very political, a small political party, like at least managed to get a selection from people who are the people from universities, people who are teaching at universities, which was part of the project that I joined during 2019 with this economist Jose Luis Espert. Now he's candidate for President Milei. And when I was joining that, I was also candidate during 2019, but it was very, very small. And again, it was the elections were about Peronismo or PRO, which was former President Mauricio Macri, and he didn't get enough votes for his second term. So, okay, that was a little bit the beginning of the end for them. Um, but of course, you have to choose from the. At that moment, all the many of the candidates were part of the people who are now. Like when I was mentioning Lilia Lemoine, she was also during the campaign in 2019 the speaker of the president, Manuel Adorni, who was also there. Jose Luis Espert was running for president. Uh, Even, okay, a guy who they fired after the big situation in the disabled agency when this problem started a month ago. He was not a candidate, but he was in the background. I mean, people are always kind of the same in these small political parties, but mainly there were professors and economists from University of SEMA it is called. They were all from there, and it's a small cycle. Okay, let's say you pick from those universities, you pick professors. It's something that at least you know that they have better political professional backgrounds, that
Mm-hmm.
people are not that mediocre. They know they have expertise about something, which is not the case of the people they chose for the last Sunday. It is somehow not the case. They have better lists for October, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
have the list that they should have
Mm-hmm.
chosen. And it is a problem because there is little opposition that it's started to, there are another political parties who just started by now, like they were created a month ago. And for instance, one woman who was from the corruption, the some sort of a prosecutor offers for corruption, anti-corruption. She managed to get, I don't know how you say, concejales. It's like representation for small regions inside the process, inside the province. And she just created the her political party. She was the one, the second, the number two at the anti-corruption, just to be short, anti-corruption office. And she managed to create a small party. She had representation, and she managed to get 10 people to become concejales, which is a small representation inside one region of the big Buenos Aires province. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a huge achievement. She has been there. Okay, she's been running and speaking for since the beginning of the year, but she just launched the political party. And that woman should be, she should have been called, for instance. She should not be running aside. She should have been inside. This is the problem. President Milei didn't manage to have a good coalition of with governors of the provinces inside the country. There was not enough dialogue, which
Mm-hmm.
might happen by now because it was a small election, but it showed the path that we're going to have. But it's a huge battle. It's a huge battle. And many people who followed President Milei and were there from the beginning, from the first days, they were not included in anything. And if the criteria was so low, at least put your fans. But maybe they thought that the people who were following they from day one, very young people, I must say, they were going to be, probably they were going to be like uh, with Peronistas, whenever someone with a lot of political experience and walking around the districts come, and these people are like there is a lot of naivety or something in the young people, even though they were loyal followers from day one. Okay. So the discussion is there somehow these days. Okay. It's a complicated situation. Should have been a little bit better. I think we
Mm-hmm.
lost somehow opportunities, but it might not be late. And as long as rule of law is on top of whatever is going here, otherwise it might really be linked to interference. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, bear
Well,
in mind that we also have, for instance, former President Cristina Fernandez is facing domiciliary. She's imprisoned at her house. She's facing domiciliary sentence, and she has to be serving at her home because the judges decide in that sense. But when Governor Axel Kicillof won last Sunday, the first speech that they put, they were all standing on the place where they were on the bunker, and the first speech, which came from above, it was former President Cristina Kirchner, and she was giving the first speech. So we still know who is running the
mm-hmm.
peronismo, justicialismo, kirchnerismo party. We still know who the boss is if you're allowing her to be the first speech. So, okay, this is where we are.
What tells me is that there needs to be a parallel mechanism for communications, for fighting whether domestic, political, information space, or foreign interference. It needs to be a priority because you cannot fight political battles, economic battles, if all your victories are not being communicated clearly, or if somebody else is managing to turn everything you do against you. This is a losing battle otherwise. There needs to be some sort of an established mechanism, formal or informal if there is no resources for it, but there needs to be some sort of organized effort to counter. This, at least in parallel to, the formal mechanisms for legal reform and everything else. Otherwise, these people who have decades of experience, of political experience, and who have the media, who have soft power, who have academia, who have students, who have, activists, all of that, they are going to inevitably be ahead because, the perception sometimes matters more than the actual results. If you're not able to um, show what you're achieving, and if everything is turned into some sort of a, battle, this is not going to inspire people to join. There needs to be some way of directing these efforts into a means. This information battlefield, I see, is as important as the actual substantive reforms and, political action. Without it, nothing, it's all going to go underwater.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like monitoring every activity that has been going on. I think that the problem relies there somehow. It's like there should have been cross checks and balances of everything that has been done for the last 2 years, because that's where the problems. We still have a lot of corruption in Argentina, which is not an issue private to our government and to our history. There's corruption everywhere, but there was a huge corruption history in Argentina. And whatever we have to do is like monitor and control everything, double check everything, and that's the reason. That's the formula I think we're going to. And you're right. I absolutely agree with whatever you're saying. Even just to give a small example of what you're saying. There were the people from who followed Mauricio Macri, voters. They were trained. There was a training. I would not call it an office, but there was a training for them that they could go to wherever school we were having elections, because you can be like what we call a general prosecutor. When you have that in your hands, a paper that says that you are a general prosecutor, you can go from school to school and monitor whatever is happening in the area. It depends on where is the which region you are being allowed to be like a general prosecutor or monitored from whenever there are elections. And I think there were more than 100,000 people trained by the party, what was called Pro Cambiemos, which was the political party of former President Mauricio Macri. These people didn't show up to monitor in the last Sunday elections, which is going to be a problem on October 26th again if they don't organize this. So you lose a lot of votes. I don't know if we have to inform with telegrams. It's like a snapshot, a screenshot of the telegram, the information, the paper where you inform how many people voted in your table. It's like about 200 to 300 people voting in each table. And for instance, last Sunday's elections, the candidates for Kirchnerismo, Peronismo, they were in some telegrams that I saw. They had I don't know. Let's say they had 100 votes. Some other oppositions had 4, 17, something. And for instance, La Libertad Avanza, which is the political party of President Milei, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. It's like, and when you were doing the addition, they were putting the total amount of people. So you will get 220 people who was in the table and voted. But when you were like, okay, where are the, I don't know, 96 votes from La Libertad Avanza? They never stated them. That's why you need people to prosecute, to not to prosecute, to monitor, because we call it fiscales, which is the translator from prosecution, but for prosecutors. But it's people controlling, it's people going and monitoring the
Some monitors.
elections. Yeah, which is not going to be the same case in where I'm running, which is Ciudad de Buenos Aires, because we have one paper for all the political parties. So luckily, my party is going to be number one. So you only have to do two crosses if you want to vote us, and that's it. It's like you don't have papers for each political party and candidate. So it's going to be a little bit more modern in this situation, and you will not need so many people to go and control whatever is going on, because it's the same paper for everyone. But again,
Here's here's the thing. These people cannot be ignored just because they're populous or you're currently in power, because the moment they see that things are going against them politically, for now they feel like they can win politically just by doing propaganda, information warfare. The next step, if they feel they're losing, is something more sinister. I'm telling you because of what happened in El Salvador with Bukele. The moment reached the peak of his popularity, there was an assassination attempt against him that they prevented. Someone put a bomb, and who else would that be if not the opposition? Obviously. So these people, these networks, they're not they can use democracy, they can know how to use it, but if necessary, they will not use democratic means. And that's the big difference. There is a double standard that you know, they expect the people who are fighting for freedom to operate by the rule of law, but they themselves are not necessarily limited to the rule of law. And that's why they cannot be ignored. Any efforts that they're doing now, if there is any political interference, if they are involved in any illegal activity, it needs to be cut off early, because before they get to the point where if they feel endangered, they're willing to cross the line. And this is my concern right now. You know, i- if they prevail
yeah,
politically, it's bad enough, but if they fail for the time being, they will then push to the next level.
yeah, absolutely. But when you create this situation where people, you are making things good, as I was explaining in the macroeconomics, but people are facing struggles every day to, or maybe people are going with the credit card and paying like in three, you can pay with
Installments.
3 months,
Yeah,
and you're buying
financing.
food. Yeah, you're financing and you're buying food. If you're really buying food and financing it for the last 3 months, like this is total chaos. It's really a bad situation. So that is the one of the hypothesis where you create all this situation when the propaganda from the opposition comes and rises again.
Yeah.
And maybe seeing them come together and be the ones who won last Sunday, and watching all this speech and watching imprisoned former president Cristina Fernandez giving the first speech, maybe they will wake up and realize that there's a quote of social aspects that had not been quietly taken into account yet. And maybe you need to do a little bit more for the people in order to prevent them from going again to vote these propaganda machines uh, parties, because they are also propaganda machines parties. It's going to be difficult. There is a lot of, as I was stating, there is like a 30% of people inside the province of Buenos Aires that they are always going to vote into with that. Peron is Peron and will always be Peron. It has been that for the 80 last years, and they will not change their minds. Pevita and Peron, then this is all we need. And they are used to living with all the economic aid that the government provides, and they don't want to change their minds, and they don't wake up and go to work every morning, and sometimes they don't even send their kids to school, and that is a reality somehow. I was also pointing out the last 2 weeks, I guess, the importance of having in a country like Argentina, the importance of having a program for the first 1,000 days of born child, because instead of giving economic aid to the family, if you do a really concrete very crossed with controls and nutrition and education program, and you dedicate for the first 3 years of a child, uh, you invest in that, you might have better outcome later, and will not be the situation that has been created, because there will be like 2 to 3 generations that grew up in this situation, that they are not very used to going to work, that they are into whatever but not into soccer and whatever, and they don't care because they will still get some aid from the government, and this has to move. So we have to put a lot of the information and all a lot of education programs, but really really make it, because in the case of the first 3 years of a child, I was monitoring whatever exists around the world. And it's about 15 to 16 countries that have been implementing the program. Really, there are not many countries around the world that have been implementing. And inside Argentina, it has been here and there a little bit. And Social Affairs Ministry, they have been given some economic aid. But if you really implement an important educational program, you support the mother, you take the children to schools, you are sure that the children are receiving nutrition, the right nutrition, you can make a difference. It's like, even for this budget, where you have to bear in mind the deficit, the fiscal deficit, that is all the president cares. There's the last quote in the report I prepared is like, for every dollar that you invest, you will save 10 to 7 dollars, 10, no, sorry, $7 to $10 later, if you invest $1 in the child. It's like that. If you make a good investment, and then you will not have to deal uh, with other kind of problems, because minority who are not educated, who are not raised in a good environment, it could probably be minority will face problems, who will be thieves, who will be, and I'm also aware of that, because I feed 300 people every Thursday here in Ciudad de Buenos Aires through what is Order of Malta, Argentina. So we have consistently working since to feed people since 2013. But it's not an ideal situation. What would be ideal is that no one needed us to provide them a sandwich, or well, a sweet or something. Like, we we really should be successful if nobody comes.
So
But
So what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of, all people are seeing is the austerity measures that are necessary to cut the deficit, but they don't see the opportunity and the prosperity. So you need kind of to implement also a prosperity doctrine to show people what is possible with the right, with the right investments, with the right mindset. So yes, attractive investments is one thing, but also kind of encouraging entrepreneurship, kind of creating self opportunities for self starters, giving people motivation to kind of explore and do things that don't necessarily take up a lot of capital, that can be done easily online, or with some or with cheap means, or a few people don't have to require a huge investment. This sort
yeah.
of a business oriented deregulatory environment, that is something that needs to be done in parallel with the austerity measures, because if all people see is some lofty goal that doesn't reflect on their daily lives, of course they're going to be unhappy. So there, but that doesn't mean sacrificing your principles, or just compromising on things you don't want to compromise. But it does mean kind of reevaluating how you can help people help themselves in a way that will kind of get them more involved and want them to get involved, and also take the pressure off.
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, in the case of Ciudad de Buenos Aires, whenever we do this activity every Thursday with the 350 people, uh, people from the government of Ciudad de Buenos Aires, which is related, that the chief of government now is the cousin of Macri. He is Jorge Macri. But they are implementing, there are four SUVs who come to the queue that we have of 300 people. And they have, if people are sleeping on the streets, they try to persuade them to go and live their are like 54 places to they can take them to sleep for the night, and maybe keep them for some period of time if the people are living on the streets. It's not that we have a lot of people living on the street, but about 2 to 3,000. It's not
Mhm.
that a lot, but it is quite a lot. So it's worse in the winter. We are slowly getting into spring, but it has been a very cold winter and it was complicated. So there are 54 places, and you have like places for women, places for people, for men who could be a little bit, I wouldn't say dangerous. It's like in the people in a critical situation, people,
Mhm.
places for older men to go, but you try to separate places for families, but they have to also comply with the rule that they will take the kids to the school, which
Mhm.
they monitor. Then they have a way to also systematize them into the labor market, whether they want to do like small things. Because imagine that people living on the streets with all the problems that they are facing, sometimes they are also they have mental problems because they are
Sure.
living on the street. It's very tough. But there are doctors, there are people who try to insert you in the labor market, even for small things. And what I was trying to, the information I was asking, requesting lately, it was whether there are um, uh, businesses or big places, like I don't know, big companies that could have like get from their taxes or something and employ them, and there are some companies who are starting to have that, but since they cannot be there is not a lot of compromise and engagement from these people from the streets, so it's going to be a little, still is a little bit complicated. And this is only for the city of Buenos Aires, which is not the province of Buenos Aires where the worst situation is. And then we have other problems in the provinces, because then you go to provinces and the amount of poverty is bigger, and the malnutrition, desnutrition, like there are other problems. So you are not even thinking about the jobs, and because you don't know how a child is going to grow. So we are still facing very, very difficult problems inside the Republic of Argentina. And yes, in the middle of that, you can have other powers trying to have their own profit from of all this situation. Anyway, we're we're doing some sort of work in progress, but the government has to understand that they cannot forget about all this social aspect that is being a little bit left behind. A little bit. It's like, yeah.
There's one idea that I had while you were talking, which is, it may be hard to attract big investment right now because of the instability, but what shouldn't be hard to ask from these people from the US or whoever who visiting is to attract skill building investment, which is not investment into infrastructure or big projects, but investment in training people with basic skills so that they can help on a community level with some grassroots small initiatives. That is not does not require a huge amount of capital. A lot of people are already engaged in that type of work in various countries. So that is something that is a long-term investment and could help ease and facilitate this sort of thing that can stabilize situation enough, then you can then start into more serious job creation and capital attraction. So that I
Yeah,
think
it can be
could
doable.
be the near term impactful focus on international reception relations on this kind of trade, attracting in skill building innovation.
Okay, we should create that project. We should do a
I'm up
joint
for it.
project to that. I think it's important. Yeah, it's a very good idea. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, totally. I think it would be good. And it could be a way to have foreign capital, a small approach of foreign capital and businesses or industries here in Argentina. It's a good idea. Yeah, yeah, we should do it. I'm very into that project. I like it. I like it a lot, and I don't want to like. For me, it's a real concern that they are not taking good care about the people, because that's the outcome you see on from the Sunday elections is exactly a little bit of that. Also watered with a little bit of peronismo, you get this formula, but you could do so much more. There's really
That's what
so
I'm
much more
saying.
that can be done. Yeah, yeah.
The kind of thing that can be built. This is something that can be identified and can be a mixture of public, private. So it doesn't have to be just major international institutions sending, formal people. It could be NGOs, it could be private initiatives, it could be religious institutions who have these sort of programs. It can be a very diversified effort.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. Thank you so much. It's a very, very good idea.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that we can continue this on a more optimistic note, because there is obviously a lot of goodwill that I'm observing. There's a good potential, but sometimes when you s- jump right into rough waters, it can be difficult to reach a point where you can swim in a stable way until you reach your destination. So I'm hoping that we can kind of sort of see a breakthrough with that, and move forward, learn from the experience, and kind of find positive things that can anchor the situation to something more positive. And thank you so much for lending these important insights. Obviously, it's much harder to interfere in something if there is a resilience, social resilience to intervention. Unfortunately, economic problems, historic problems, social issues, they all make it easier for foreign countries to push the objectives. Let's find a way to
Let's
prevent them
find a
from
way.
doing that.
Exactly. Exactly. I must say, Irene, it's been really a pleasure talking to you and trying to find ways to make a better place, Argentina a better place. Yes, to live. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and we'll be in touch to discuss this more, hopefully in the
We'll
near
be in touch.
future.
For sure, we'll be in touch. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye, and thanks to everyone watching us. We'll be back next Tuesday night at the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio, 9 p.m. Stay tuned.